Aleister Crowley has always appealed to me because he stands out among all the great mystics of the world in being the most egregious case. There are some pretty weird mystics in all traditions, and some that look like they were part-time crazy, but there's nobody quite compares to Crowley. Mary D'Este Sturgis, who was Crowley's mistress around 1911 and wrote the introduction to his book 4, she said other religious leaders say, "Believe me." Crowley says, "Don't believe me." Now that's what I find most attractive about him, is his constant skepticism and don't believe me. Try the exercises and find out for yourself. He studied most of the schools of consciousness alteration that existed in his time. He studied yoga with the Hindus and the Buddhists, and various different types of yoga: Hatha yoga, Gnana yoga, Raja yoga, Tantra yoga. He learned a lot about Taoism in China, became an I Ching expert long before there were any others in the Western world who knew anything about I Ching. Did his own translation of the Tao Te Ching. Studied a little Sufism in North Africa, evidently. He was the leading authority in his time in the Western occult tradition. And he picked up bits and snatches of all sorts of other things in his travels around the world, including a great deal about shamanic traditions that use drugs to alter consciousness. He knew more about that than anybody before the 1960s. So all in all, reading Crowley's books, he gives you, in most of his books, he gives you a lot of exercises along with the theory. And if you start doing the exercises that Crowley gives you, you find your consciousness does alter. And then you find the universe alters, which, of course, is inevitable because the only universe you know is the universe in your consciousness. So this is kind of confusing to some people. But this combination of do the work and don't believe anybody's dogmas, draw your own conclusions after you've done the work. I like that approach. Crowley put it into a poem once, which I'm fond of. "We place no reliance on virgin or pigeon. Our method is science. Our aim is religion." I think that's a terrific approach, especially when you look around at so many things that are called New Age that are so gullible and medieval. People who you feel you could easily sell them the Brooklyn Bridge if you were inclined. They'd go and get their savings out of the bank and hand it to you right away. Compared to the gullibility and superstition in most New Age centers, Crowley is really refreshing, like cold water in the face. Really wakes you up.
What about some of the stories of like him smashing a glass by looking at it, the Oxford demonstration, and then the stories I've read about the psychic war that carried on with S.L. McGregor Mathers? Is that correct, you guys? Am I getting his name correct?
There's a lot of interesting stories about Crowley, and I don't think there is yet a really good biography of Crowley. They're all biased. Most of them are biased against him. His enemies got into print before his friends, and there are several books that portray Crowley as a raving monster and demented maniac, sadist, and whatnot. And then his friends or admirers started writing biographies that are equally prejudiced and try to portray him as the magus of the new Aeon, the utterer of the word of the law, which will transform the whole planet to higher consciousness sometime in the very near future. We're supposed to have entered, according to the Orthodox Crowleyans, we are supposed to have entered the Aeon of Horus in 1904. And if you ask what is the evidence, well, the world certainly has gotten a lot weirder since 1904. When the Aeon of Horus fully manifests itself is an open question. Is it going to take 500 years, or is it going to happen in 2012 like everybody else's prophecies? Well, I don't know. But meanwhile, we've got all this literature about Crowley, some of it absolutely incredible. One of the most widely published stories about Crowley is the time he and his son MacGregor went into a hotel room in Paris and drew a pentagram and invoked the devil. And in the morning, MacGregor was found dead of a heart attack, and Crowley was off his head and had to spend 6 months in a mental hospital and never quite regained his intellectual faculties. That story has appeared in quite a few books. The fascinating thing about it is it first appeared in a work of fiction, a novel by Dennis Wheatley. Dennis Wheatley was the head of the Double Cross Bureau of English Intelligence. Crowley was a part-time employee of MI5. Each one of them seems to have been highly suspicious of the other. Wheatley had a tendency to believe that any conspiracy he wasn't supervising personally was the work of the devil. And, well, the Double Cross Bureau had some real weirdos in it anyway. Besides Wheatley, Ian Fleming worked in the Double Cross Bureau. You see what kind of rich fantasy life he had when you read the James Bond novels. And Alan Turing, who invented the Turing machine problem, also worked there. Anyway, Wheatley's invention in the novel called For the Devil a Bride, about Crowley and his son invoking the devil. There are lots of weaknesses in this story. For instance, Crowley never spent any time in a mental hospital in France. And for another thing, his son MacGregor never showed any interest in magic or in Crowley's occult studies. And for a third thing, Crowley didn't die of a heart attack in a hotel room in Paris. And the most clinching argument of all is there never was a son named MacGregor Crowley. The whole thing was made up out of a whole cloth. There's not one fact in that. Now, that's typical of a lot of the legends about Crowley. Once you start examining them, you find out they were created either by Crowley out of his wicked sense of humor or by his enemies out of their total lack of humor, and it's very hard to find out what to believe. I didn't. It took me a long time to decide whether or not to believe he worked for English intelligence, but the evidence is accumulated enough that I believe that, although it sounds like something he might have invented. He did invent some pretty tall tales about himself.
The English Intelligence Service, that was prior to and during World War II?
It was during World War II. Crowley evidently worked in the propaganda division. Among other things, he proposed the sign that's identified with Winston Churchill, the V for Victory sign, which is evoking the powers of Set, the Egyptian donkey-headed deity that Crowley regarded as a good mischievous spirit to set against your enemies. Crowley did various other things for English intelligence. All the details are far from clear.
What about the rivalry between him and S.L. McGregor Mathers and the supposed I've read some things about like McGregor Mathers set a swarm of rats or locusts on this house. I mean, then they were like in different parts of Europe when this was going on.
Crowley's psychic and propaganda war with McGregor Mathers was real. Was typical of the kookiness of the occult world. McGregor Mathers arose to the position of outer head of the Golden Dawn, which was the primary magical order in England at that time. Yeats and several others decided Mathers had become a tyrant and perhaps a megalomaniac. They unseated him and formed a rival Golden Dawn, claiming he was unfit to lead. Crowley sided with Mathers, and Yeats developed the opinion that Crowley had set demons upon him because of his rebellion against Mathers. Then Crowley and Mathers had a quarrel, and they each accused the other of setting demons upon him. But they finally got to court because Crowley, in his magazine Equinox, started publishing all the secret rituals of the Golden Dawn. He announced that the secret chiefs had authorized him to do this. This is the kind of thing that cannot be judged in a court of law because the secret chiefs did not take the form in space-time wherein they can testify in a courtroom. The secret chiefs exist only where the square root of -1 exists, or the White Rabbit of Alice in Wonderland. You got to be in a special state to contact the secret chiefs, and no court is quite equipped to do it. So if one guy says the secret chiefs told me this, and somebody else said the secret chiefs told me the opposite, there's no evidential way of judging between them. You just decide which one you think is crazy and then the other. So anyway, Crowley claimed the secret chiefs authorized him to publish these rituals. Mathers tried to stop it. The trial turned into all sorts of irrelevant issues, such as whether Mathers had or had not alleged that he was the reincarnation of King Charles I, which Mathers didn't want to answer on the witness stand for fear of prejudicing the jury, but was compelled to admit he had at times claimed to be the reincarnation of Charles I. There wasn't Charles II, I think. And there were various innuendos about Crowley's sex life, which Crowley enjoyed very much, although most of the other people did not enjoy it. Crowley really had a weak spot for, he didn't mind how much trouble he got into or how much pain he caused those around him. If he had a chance to do something that would shock the British public, he'd go ahead and do it. And the most amazing thing about his life is that he stayed out of jail. He lived to be 72 and never spent a day in jail. It's amazing for a person with his temperament. Everybody I know who remotely reminds me of Crowley has spent time in jail. You can't have that attitude of deliberately flaunting society's rules. I think Sinead O'Connor is going to end up in jail eventually, for instance. Crowley was sort of a cross between Sinead O'Connor and Madonna in a male form. Well, as a matter of fact, that's another of the interesting Crowley legends. Crowley predicted that he would reincarnate to carry on the work of initiating the new Aeon, only when he came back it would be as a woman. And you'd be surprised how many women I've met who claim they are Crowley reincarnated. It's a long, long list. The one I find most plausible has never made the claim. That's Madonna. She has her own shtick. She doesn't need the claim to be Crowley. She's got a big enough audience already.